And the perfect curtain raiser to the senior women's event was the inaugural Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup, which saw India lifting the trophy after beating England over the weekend. For the Proteas, they can take some positives despite missing out on a semi-final spot. Joining us now to discuss the campaign and the performance of our national Under-19 women is head coach Dinesha Devnarian. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika once again.
Yeah, very good evening to you as well. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So only one defeat against India, which was right at the beginning of your campaign. How difficult was that for the girls that they didn't make it through to the semi-finals?
Yeah, look, if I'm being really honest, they were gutted. They were really broken. And I think it kind of showed in the game against Sri Lanka when we knew we needed to post 220 to stand a chance in the competition. And I think it kind of showed when we went back with the ball is that we lost some of that fight. But yeah, look, I think the girls did exceptionally well. You know, to be honest, we didn't have a great WSL, which was a very important part to our preparation, and we didn't have a great series against India as well. But I think from the first onset of the first game, the official game against India, I mean, to post 160 plus was a massive booster for the girls to actually believe that they can do it. And I'm so glad it happened because this bunch of girls can play cricket, and they sort of lost their identity in the space of 2 months, and they took the 8 months or the years of hard work, and they just wanted to forget about that. So I'm really glad it came together. Look, we are, I think all of us are still hurting from it. And just knowing that the one loss we did have was against India and they went to be champions. People always say like that should soften the blow. No, it doesn't, because we were hoping to catch them in the semi-final or final again, so we can get sort of our retribution. But good campaign to India, but I think we are hurting that we didn't qualify, unfortunately not. But there is a lot of positives going into the future of South African women's cricket. And yeah, I mean, we only have to look to rebuild from here. I think the big positive thing is that we do have information now on the Under-19 tournament and what the performance benchmarks are. So look, we're going to try and exceed that and set our own new performance benchmarks where maybe the next World Cup will be definitely in a semi-final position and then bring the trophy home.
Yeah, it's never easy losing out on a semi-final spot because of net run rate. Looking back now, do you feel that you guys could have been a lot more aggressive in some of the matches?
No, definitely. If it boiled down to the net run rate, then we know that India and Australia, the reason why they went through is because they posted bigger scores. And the batting has been a problem, to be honest, for a while. And then we just couldn't kick off after the 160 against when we played against the Indians. But yeah, looking in hindsight now, look, there was a brand of cricket that we wanted to play, but unfortunately, yeah, it just didn't come off. And unfortunately, you can come with wins, but if it's going to come down to net run rate, you know, it is going to hurt us. And hopefully that this is a lesson we take as a South African Under-19 team and the future of South African women's cricket is that batting is really important and setting high totals is important. So developing the brand of cricket that I did last year becomes so much more pivotal and important now. And we just need the whole of South Africa and all the stakeholders in that to buy into that brand, because ultimately, as it just did, it can cost us World Cups.
You speak about the future being bright, and you have to just think of that young lady we just saw on the screen now, young Karabo Meso, only 15 years old. She was also the only South African to be named as part of the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Team of the tournament.
Yeah, she's a quality kid. From the first time I saw her, I was like, you know, it seemed as though she was keeping from 5 years old. You know, just the intricacies and the technique and the mindset that you need for wicket keeping. I mean, she keeps like she's in her mid-20s, closer to her 30s. She's just really exceptional. It is someone that we've got to invest and, you know, we've got to put interventions in place to make sure that the kid is taken care of. And also in this phase, we mustn't lose sight that at the end of the day, she is a kid. And she's enjoying her cricket at the moment. Look, from my side, before the World Cup started, I made a bold statement and I said that we have the best wicketkeeper in our Under-19 groupings, and I'm just so glad that she just stuck to her guns and she played really well. She supported really well with the bat as well. She's just a real, how can I say, just a diamond in the rough, and we just got to make sure that we take care of the kid. Yeah, and just that look, she can only go up from here. So the main thing for her is that we just keep her in good spirit, remind herself that she's still a kid, and we facilitate that growth process very closely.
Well, she had a total of 8 dismissals during the tournament, so you were absolutely spot on when you came to that prediction, because she certainly was at the best at the tournament. What was also fantastic to see, it was the inaugural event for women's cricket that we had a junior T20 World Cup, and also the public seemed to really enjoy it. How many youngsters came to you afterwards, or parents came and said, I never realized that this was available for my daughter?
Yeah, it was quite a bit, but the security was so tight that we couldn't actually mingle with the public, even close family and friends. But there was a lot of feedback through social media, people inboxing me, saying they didn't even know a tournament like this existed. And, there's such great exposure. And you know what, I must give credit to Cricket South Africa and Eastern's Cricket Board. I thought the crowds that they had in there for the first ever Under-19 inaugural tournament was fantastic. It was good for the girls, it was good for the sport, and it was definitely good for people that didn't know about the game, especially the women's game. So look, I think a seed has been planted.
Yeah.
And I think what happens after this year becomes so important and so crucial, because now you become and you set your sustainability programs in terms of, do we just want to compete, or do we want to produce future Proteas that has the ability to lift World Cups? If they can do it at an under-19 level, we can do it at a senior level. And with that is a very important point that you made there, is that you need exposure of the game, and people need to get involved, because that will entirely create competitiveness and a bigger pool of players.
Can you put on your other cap as an analyst now? The senior squad was announced, and a semi-final appearance will be a minimum expectation for the Proteas women. It is an experienced squad, a lot made of Dinesha Devnarian not being fit for this team and for this tournament. Do you think a semi-final appearance, a final appearance, is realistic? Do you think that this group of girls can make it?
Yeah, look, if I'm being really honest, I do think we can do it. Look, we know that we had a few bumps and a few chunks taken out of the team, and you mentioned the skipper or the ex-skipper before this year, and Lizelle, Mignon Dupree. I see Trisha Chetty's not in the squad. So the way I see it is that you're taking our experience out of the squad, and we know how important experience is in World Cups. But the reason why I say we can get to a semi-final is because I had the pleasure of working with most of those developing players. So someone like Dalmi Tucker, Annerie Dirksen, Anneke Bosch, Tasman Brits, even Laura Goodall came out of my program, or the National Academy program. So I do understand, I do know what the girls are capable of. And when it comes to T20 cricket, you've got to be so meticulous in how you want to go about executing your skills. And I honestly believe that these players that we've selected, the 15, can take us to a final, a semi-final, and then ultimately a final. But yeah, I think what's the important thing is accountability and responsibility is very important. So whether you're opening the bat in middle order, lower order, or you're bowling in the jet, you've got to understand what you need to do. And I hope that, I know that the girls are practicing that way, so that's really important. But look, I do have faith in the girls, and if they do what's required from them from a performance benchmarking point of view, I honestly believe we'll get into a final, and anything can happen in the final.
Having worked so closely with a lot of these girls in the development structures, and also being so close to women's cricket in the country, do you feel that the women's game don't necessarily have the kind of mental blocks that we may see in the men's game?
No, there's definitely a lot of mental wellness, if I'll put it that way, issues or challenges in the women's game. I don't think it's very comfortable for the ladies to speak about it at the moment because it's so new. But just speaking from an under-19 perspective, the emerging and the National Academy program, it is becoming something that we've got to address, and we've got to actually have more programs around mental awareness and what that means. So I'm not going to mention a lot of names or any names actually, but there's a lot of performance anxiety that comes through anxiety, and also mental blocks in terms of performing on big stages. So somehow, as a federation, as an association, we've got to take that seriously. And I'm a big fan of emotional intelligence. And that's something we've got to start introducing to women's cricket, regardless of its top tier or right at the bottom. But it's something that I think as athletes, and especially female athletes, don't do too well is the control of their emotions. And I think it's something that it's of urgency right now that we have to address, as a matter of fact. But credit goes to the girls that do try to make mental frameworks within themselves to make sure that they come out on top. But, I mean, you're talking about World Cup. You're talking about the women's game is growing so massively. We talk about big match temperament. All of these things are triggering us emotionally, and we've got to find and get the expertise on board to understand how do we tackle issues like this.
Under-19 women's head coach Dinesha Devnarian chatting to us once again here on Newzroom Afrika. Congratulations on your campaign at the inaugural event with the South African team.